Today we are going over the top 5 worst cannibalism cases in the world. Sit back, grab a snack and hit the subscribe button. Roll the intro. Five. Armin Meiwes, the Rotenburg cannibal. Armin Meiwes, a German man, became infamous in the early 2000s when he gained consent from a willing participant, Bernd-Jürgen Brandes, to butcher and eat him. This extraordinary case began with an online posting in 2001, where Meiwes sought a volunteer for consensual human consumption. After multiple respondents, Brandes, an engineer from Berlin, answered the ad. The two met at Meiwes' home in Rotenburg, where they engaged in explicit conversations about the act they were about to commit. They recorded the encounter, further complicating the morality and legality of the situation. On March 9, 2001, Meiwes and Brandes engaged in acts that shocked even the most hardened crime watchers. Meiwes severed Brandes' penis, which both men reportedly tried to eat raw, but when they found it unpalatable, it was cooked and served. Brandes ultimately died from blood loss, after which Meiwes proceeded to eat parts of his body over the next several months, preserving them in his freezer. The disturbing nature of the case, combined with the consent aspect, raised significant legal questions about the boundaries of consent and criminal liability. In 2002, Meiwes was arrested, and at his trial in 2004 he was charged with manslaughter as prosecutors struggled to determine the legality of consensual cannibalism. The case took many dramatic turns, from the initial conviction to a retrial where he was eventually sentenced to life imprisonment for murder in 2006. Meiwes attempted to defend his actions as an expression of love, a sentiment that only deepened the public's horror and fascination with the case. On April 8, 2004, Meiwes was sentenced to life in prison. His final words during sentencing focused on regret and an acknowledgement of the horrific nature of his actions, stating, "I would never have thought to take a person's life. I am sorry for what I've done." The case remains one of the most chilling examples of cannibalism, raising ethical and legal debates that continue to resonate today. 4. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal. Jeffrey Dahmer, known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, or the Milwaukee Monster, was responsible for the murders of 17 young men between 1978 and 1991. Dahmer's gruesome activities began at an early age and escalated over time. He lured victims to his home, where he would drug them, sexually assault them, and ultimately murder them. After killing his victims, Dahmer engaged in acts of necrophilia and cannibalism, often consuming parts of their bodies and keeping body parts as trophies, a situation that horrified even seasoned detectives. Dahmer's capture in 1991 was not a straightforward affair. One of his intended victims, Tracy Edwards, managed to escape and flag down police, leading them back to his apartment. What they found was a scene of horror, dismembered body parts, photographs of dismemberment, and various other grisly evidence. The details of his heinous acts shocked the nation, revealing a pattern of manipulation, brutality, and disdain for human life. The psychological profile of Dahmer added layers to the already disturbing narrative, indicating a complex interplay of severe mental illness, childhood trauma, and sociopathy. In 1992, Dahmer was tried and ultimately found guilty of 15 counts of murder. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms in prison. During his trial, Dahmer expressed remorse for his actions, acknowledging the pain he had caused to the families and victims of his crimes. He was often reflective during interviews, articulating a tragic recognition of his detached state of mind during the murders as if in a dissociative haze. His case sparked debates on criminal insanity and the depths of human depravity. On November 17, 1992, Dahmer was sentenced to life in prison. His last words in court were a mixture of sorrow and regret. "I don't know how to describe it. I just wanted to have a relationship with him. I'm sorry." Dahmer's story remains one of the most notorious in the history of American crime, illustrating the terrifying possibilities of human behavior when twisted by mental illness and societal failure. 3. Issei Sagawa, the Japanese cannibal. Issei Sagawa, a Japanese man, became notorious for his cannibalistic acts in 1981 when he murdered a Dutch woman, Renée Hartevelt, while studying in France. Sagawa had long harbored cannibalistic desires and saw Hartevelt as the perfect embodiment of his dark fantasies. After luring her to his apartment under the pretense of practicing his English, Sagawa fatally shot her, and subsequently engaged in grotesque acts of dismemberment and consumption. savoring portions of her body over several days. Sagawa's capture was equally shocking. After he was apprehended, he claimed insanity yet was declared legally sane, and was subsequently released due to a lack of sufficient criminal charges. Sagawa's story took a bizarre turn when he returned to Japan, where he gained notoriety and became a controversial figure in media. While many hoped he would face justice for his actions, his release saw him exploit his notoriety, writing books, appearing on television, and becoming a figure of public fascination, much to the horror of the families affected by his crime. Despite his gruesome past, Sagawa's treatment by the media sparked debates about the ethics of celebrity in the context of horrific crimes. The disparity between public fascination and the gravity of his actions added another layer of complexity to the narrative. Issei Sagawa became a symbol of the media's obsession with crime, leading many to question whether justice had truly been served. This bizarre twist of fate for someone who committed such a horrendous act generated outrage and disbelief across the globe. On November 21, 1983, Sagawa was declared insane but was never charged for the murder of Hartevelt. His last recorded statement reflected a chilling disconnect with reality. "I am happy. I think I have fulfilled my dream." Sagawa's case serves as a jarring reminder of the boundaries of human depravity and the societal response to true horror. 2. Alexander Cummings, the cannibal cop. Alexander Cummings was a New York City police officer who ignited a wave of disgust and fascination with his online behavior, which included a forum where he expressed cannibalistic fantasies. Although he never physically harmed anyone, his virtual discussions featured detailed discussions about kidnapping, murdering, and consuming individuals. He was eventually charged with conspiracy to commit kidnapping and attempted kidnapping, though no actual acts of violence were ever executed. Cummings exemplified a terrifying manifestation of online fantasy taking shape through social media connections, showing how unchecked thoughts can escalate into dark aspirations. Cummings' case came to light in 2013 when he was caught trying to enact his fantasies by arranging meetings online with individuals who responded to his distressing posts. He believed that there was a community of like-minded individuals, encouraging a sort of cannibal subculture. Law enforcement intervened, and what might have been a series of horrific acts was stunted by timely intervention. During his trial, investigators discovered text conversations that showcased previously unimaginable details about his fantasies, raising questions about mental health, personal accountability, and the power of the internet to nurture dark desires. The trial gained media attention due to Cummings' occupation as a police officer, causing significant public outrage. His actions blurred the lines of fantasy and reality, forcing society to confront the darker aspects of online interactions and how they might materialize in real life. Experts debated the psychological implications of his fantasies and the compelled need for law enforcement to address these subjects, acknowledging that mental health issues often underpin acts of violence and deviance. In these discussions, society struggled to balance the right to free expression with the moral imperative to prevent danger to others. On August 25, 2014, Cummings was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and his last words were a haunting mix of regret and defiance. "I didn't mean any harm. It was all just a fantasy." The case of Alexander Cummings serves as a somber reflection on the terrifying potential of hidden desires, online anonymity, and what it truly means to cross the line from thought to action. 1. Cannibalistic cults. The Order of the Solar Temple. At the pinnacle of the disturbing realm of cannibalism is the Order of the Solar Temple, a secret society in the early 90s that believed in a transcendent, spiritual legacy. Founded by Joseph DiMambro and Luc Jouret, the cult combined elements of mysticism, ritual sacrifice, and apocalyptic predictions. Members believed that they were the chosen ones, who would ascend to a higher plane of existence. This mix of belief and chaos led to a series of shocking acts, including the deaths of numerous cult members who were said to have engaged in ritualistic cannibalism as part of their esoteric ceremonies. The group's activities culminated in a series of mass suicides in 1994 and 1995, where 74 members were found dead in Switzerland and Canada. The event shocked the world, as it was not only a collection of murders but an act deeply rooted in cult ideology. Investigators discovered macabre elements of the crime that suggested cannibalistic practices were indeed part of the group's rituals. The Order of the Solar Temple's ritualistic cannibalism was allegedly tied to a belief in spiritual purification and transcendence, essentially intertwining dark practices with the search for enlightenment. Public fascination and horror surrounded the revelations of the cult's activities, as they painted a picture of unrestrained fanaticism that deemed human life expendable in the name of belief. The media narrative surrounding the cult often reflected the public's fear of the unknown and the potential for human behavior to become twisted by ideology. The unexplained nature of the cult's beliefs, combined with their tragic ending, sparked an investigation into how societal pressures and a quest for belonging could lead people down paths that ultimately result in horror and tragedy. On December 17, 1995, remaining members were sentenced in absentia. Their final words were shrouded in confusion and fanaticism, echoing an unsettling belief in the supremacy of their cause. One member reportedly stated, "We are preparing for our journey to the stars. The Order of the Solar Temple remains one of the darkest chapters in the history of cults and cannibalism." Highlighting the intersection of human belief, despair, and unthinkable actions.